happens? Like you were talking about, that while your book begins with this epic, it moves on to a much more relevant time of today, the time that you call the age of reason. And you said in the beginning how this gap is essentially widened or made more dramatic with the technology, with this whole technological advancement that has happened in our world, with the failure of the social and familial systems and infrastructures to keep up with this advancement. So where exactly do you find the child man today?
See, even in the stories, as you would see, essentially I've used the format of first person anecdotal accounts.
Right.
The reason for doing that is that the objective here is not to analyze and interpret the child man.
Right.
But the idea is to, in a sense, visit his inner landscape. My idea is not to analyze or interpret him. My idea is to understand him. My idea is to put myself in his shoes and see
how
what does
he feels.
That's right.
Yeah.
And what does the world look like? That's why I've chosen that particular kind of format. And then looked at what are the kinds of things which have happened. For instance, one of the significant things which has happened with the age of reason is that the main source of prowess has shifted from physical to mental.
Yes.
Because today brain is the one which is the primary source of your prowess. So therefore the entire thing changes. Right? So your entire frame of even emotional volatility which was available, let's say to someone like Bhim or Duryodhan or Balarama, is no longer so easily available in a sense the modern man. Right? In fact, in the chapter on the age of reason, I've drawn a comparison with Good Will Hunting.
Yes, yes.
Now, Will Hunting, in many ways, is a typical child man. Though on the face of it, he would look very different from a Bhim or a Duryodhan. But you scratch the surface and you find the same kinds of processes. The same kind of hunger for love, the same kind of deep commitment to relationships, and people, loyalty, a disdain for conventionality, right? A need to prove your prowess just for the sake of it. Right? And no particular concern with achievement or being directed in any purposive kind of a manner. But if you look at the last part of the book, which talks about the modern day context, the essential thesis that I have, that today, given the kind of world that we live in, the structural imperatives force you to continuously suppress the child man in you. Whereas the emotive conditions are continuously fueling the child man in the individual.
Okay.
So you are caught in this, that on one hand the child man is being continuously fueled. On the other hand, in order to survive, you have to suppress it. So with the result that the child man today resides primarily in what I call our psychic and social underbelly. In the social underbelly, it's clear to see. It survives either as a terrorist, or as a gangster, or as an underworld leader, or maybe as a street bully, or what. In terms of the psychic underbelly, you see it only coming up and showing its face in situations which are relatively safe for it. For instance, on the roads. The road rage that you see, that is a typical example of it. I mean, where everyone behaves as though the road belongs only to them and no one else has a right to be there. It's, it's child man expressing himself
completely.
Right? Or in a split between your public self and your private self. So I think what's happening is, and that's worrying. Because child man, to my understanding, is one of the most beautiful parts of human psyche. And if this beautiful part is only going to live in our psychic and social underbelly, I think it's something we need to be concerned about.
And so what happens, what is the impact of this particular child man psyche, say, at a work environment?
Well, in the corporate world, by and large, people who have a strong element One, let me clarify that it's not that there are child men and non-child.
Right. Yeah.
The child man is there in every human
Yeah.
being. In some people, it may be a little more prominent.
Yeah.
By and large, in the corporate world, I've seen people with a stronger element of the child man psyche are seen as excellent troubleshooters. Right? Rarely go beyond middle management levels. Right? Are seen as action people, but who cannot strategize. Good startup people, but then cannot consolidate. There is a kind of what shall I say, discomforting relationship which most organizations have with the childmen. With them. Right? On one hand, they are useful. They are needed.
At the same time, they're very quickly disowned as
They're
well.
very. That's right.
Yeah.
They're very. So it's at best if they can be kept, in check. So it's almost like somehow, if here is this.
Needful evil kind of thing.
That's right. Yeah.
And what happens to, like you said, it's there in every one of us. Some maybe a little more than others. So what happens to man-women relationships with a person who has a very strong child man in them?
I'm overgeneralizing, but often people with a strong element of child man invariably get attracted towards women who are more feminine in a conventional sense. The nourishing, the nurturing, the loving,
the mother sort of.
Sort of.
Something like
Absolutely.
that. Okay.
Very similar to that. Right? And invariably, very soon, when they see the negative side of the mother, which is the devouring mother, so long as it's the nourishing mother, that's right, the all-consuming, devouring, controlling mother, the love of their life turns into be a nightmare from which they have to run. And then they invariably find either they become workaholics, right? Or they become addicts. Sometimes they also get into very abusive relationships. Have you seen this film called Yuva?
Maniratnam, right?
That's right, yeah. Now, there's a character in that film, I think enacted by Abhishek Bachchan. The relationship between Abhishek Bachchan and Rani Mukherjee is fairly typical in many ways of one aspect of the man-woman relationships of the child man. Right? Particularly when it turns abusive. And this happens when both individuals have strong streaks of codependency. Child man is essentially a codependent person.
Okay.
What it means is that he needs other people to depend upon so that he can be the protector, he can look after them, etc., etc. And of course, the protector can also become the abuser. That's another matter. Now, what's very interesting in the current scenario is that as women are becoming more independent, autonomous, increasingly they are turning around and saying to men, thank you, we don't need your protection. Because we have experienced far too much of exploitation and abuse in the name of protection. You can keep your protection unto yourselves. That leaves a void for the individual. So he's looking for other symbols where a certain displacement of his need to protect can happen.
Because otherwise, what will he do with that?
That's right.
Need to protect.
And very sadly, what's happening is that increasingly that place is being taken by religion.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So religion is in danger. Is becoming a big war cry all over the world. And a lot of innocence, purity, everything which was associated with women is today being displaced onto religion. And in positioning himself as a protector of the religion, in a sense, the child man of today feels like a man
when he's doing that.
When he's doing
so
that.
he's upholding something.
That's right.
Yeah.
And it's actually becoming a medium for people to feel manly.
Yeah.
and to feel, to say yes,
So
I'm
his
man enough.
prowess is now being
That's right.
shown up
That's
as
right.
being the protector of,
That's right.
or whether you take nationhood or religion or
correct.
anything
Yeah,
that he.
sure.
Hmm.